So Fuji, I'll talk to you a little bit about telecom provider requirements, and what we tried to do is actually translate those requirements into what it would mean to actually put that in a lab, set it up, and show that. So that translated into a VCO demo checklist, and a lot of interest from providers allowed us to actually focus on VCO mobile this time around for 2.0, and to actually demonstrate a full VLAN setup for LTE. We started working with a number of our partners, and we were able to actually show a low layer split as well as a high layer split. We focused on building things like a low latency service. We've also tried to accommodate things like network slicing with multiple EPCs, voice over LTE, and the list actually became larger and larger as the time grew by. One of the things that we wanted to focus on also is to have a mix of bare metal and virtual machines, and hopefully in future containers. So those were the goals with which we started this whole exercise. And it was the same stack that we had for VCO 1.0. We used the exact same stack, of course with a different set of partners, because we are trying to demonstrate and showcase a mobile use case this time. So we had a new set of partners to bring in the radio, to bring in the virtual EPC, and to bring in some of the assurance elements across the entire stack.
Actually, do you mind if I, hold on one second, Brandon? Yeah. Going back to look at this slide, we've actually got free range routing here, and we don't have them on the community slide at the end. Did we actually use stuff from them? Should they be on the community?
So Cumulus is actually the primary maintainers of free range routing.
Okay.
So we can either take that thing off, or we can leave it there. It's up to you. FRR.
Yeah, yeah, I'm just wondering, because if they are here and they're not later, it's a little weird.
I agree.
So maybe we take it off of this slide?
Yeah.
On center.
Yeah, center Cumulus.
Yeah, so we'll just, yeah, and then maybe we can, yeah, we'll remove the logos. But yeah, let's do that as another slide edit between now and then. All right, sorry.
Back to time clock. So as part of the VCO Mobile, we had to develop this particular architecture, and with the community, with the power of the community, we worked pretty hard to actually build a complete architecture that involved a VLAN, a packet core, and an edge compute capability. And we had to go back and update the VCO white paper that was published last year as part of the residential and business setup. And Cumulus was kind enough to host us this time around. Last time it was another vendor that hosted us. This time it was Cumulus that hosted us in San Jose. And we built out a physical topology. This was a large leaf spine fabric with 6 leaf switches, 2 spine switches, and a lot of compute nodes that were connected together. Again, we used the same principles in terms of building, using an SDN controller to build out the network and to build the overall a large topology. Additionally, something interesting here is a software-defined radio and actually 2 real phones sitting in a Faraday cage. That brings me to the demo topology in terms of how we were able to put this together. Now, what I'm going to just take a few minutes and just describe to you the entire topology here. What you see on the top left side of your screen is a Faraday cage where the 2 phones are actually sitting inside the Faraday cage. There's a software-defined radio by Etis, and that's connected to the radio unit and the DU, distributed unit, which in turn to the centralized unit. Now, the RU and the DU are bare metal nodes provisioned by OpenStack, and then you have a full OpenStack infrastructure that hosts a number of VMs and VNFs, including the assurance capability, including some of the session director, and so on. What you see then is now connected back to a branch office right here on stage on my left-hand side, as Heather is pointing out to you. And in that branch office, we have certain virtual machines again, and we actually have a PBX that's hosted in there. And what we're going to show you in terms of a traffic flow is traffic coming from the internet all the way out to the phone, then onto another phone through the air, and then that traffic will actually come all the way down to this particular PBX. We will demonstrate that to you in a moment. It took us a lot of effort by a number of people to actually make this happen. So to actually show the actual demo, I'm going to invite Hanan Garcia on stage. Hanan?
Hey, thank you, Azar. And good morning, everybody. So we're going to be showing, yeah, there is my screen. So what you're seeing here, guys, is the representation of the phones that we are actually sitting on the cage. So I will be manipulating controlling the phones through this user interface. So bear with me for a moment. So we were saying that those two phones are sitting on the Faraday cage back in our lab in San Jose, and I'm going to be switching on the first phone. So getting out of airplane mode, and we should be seeing that we have LTE connectivity just in a moment. There it is. So,
and Hanan, this is actually an application that is able to give you a remote UI into the actual hardware in the Faraday cage back in the US.
Absolutely.
Cool. So there's actual phone hardware behind this. This isn't just smoke and mirrors and HTML.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, we're going to show you that the phones are actually working in a minute. So what I'm going to show you now is we have been, and I don't know if you have the time, but we are monitoring the tweets on the hashtag ONS2018. Azar, I might ask you to ask the people before I came in this.
Yes, I can do that.
So anyway,
before you walk
here it is. We're going to be refreshing. As you can see, this is live. Okay, so we are having internet connection. As Azar was mentioning, we have two phones. One is connecting straight to the internet. The other one is connecting to the corporate. And before doing that, I'm going to be doing something else. So would like to hear some music. But of course, we're not going to hear anything here because this is streaming into the cage, right? So let's go to the second phone. So the second phone is connected, just switching on the second phone, is connected to the LTE in a couple of minutes. And this phone is configured to connect to the internet as well, but thanks to the split on the network, this light on the network is going redirected to the corporate network. And that branch in there is connected as well to the corporate network. So to test that, I will show you in a minute. So, well, this is about mobile, right? So it's about mobile. So what about making a call on stage? Heather?
It's not ringing. Oh look, I've got a phone call. It looks like my friend Hanan's calling me. Oh, and I can hear some music playing on here.
So,
let me sort of show all of you so that you can hear it too.
What about sharing that music with everybody on stage? On the auditorium?
I always love it when friends call me with some Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. And from now on, I'm going to call that song Islands of Packets in the Mobile Data Stream. All right, so Hanan, just sort of, let me make sure I understood what happened. I know you set it up, but so the phone, one phone in your Faraday cage was connected to one network and streaming this music, and then was able to go over the air to the phone that called me, under the sea, into that PBX, into the phone.
Exactly. Right. Remember that the two phones are sitting on the Faraday cage. Okay. So one phone is streaming, the other phone is having the voice call on the network. Same cell, same network, right. Slice, internet, corporate. And of course, as the two phones are on the same cage, one phone is picking out the sound that's coming from the other phone, and this is what you're hearing.
Right. Cool. So we've actually been able to see some network slicing too. So Azar, we've had some pretty graphs going back. Oh, I was going to ask you to show the graphs when we actually got the first phone on. All right, let's try that. Let's try that bit again. Let's go back to you turning the first phone on.
Okay.
So do you want to go back to the other? Is this the NetScout API or the?
This is the F5 first,
okay, that's
and then I have the NetScout right here.
Okay, the NetScout's right. Okay, and that's the NetScout?
Yep.
Okay, all right, let's go back to the F5. All right, so let's try that again. So you did Twitter, and now, okay, yeah, let's just start from where you are there.
So you started from scratch, Heather?
Yeah, phone.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
Let's start from scratch. The phone's here, it's gonna ring. And I walk by.
Yeah.
So guys, I trust you to make that phone ring in time. Looking at you, Ignacio. So let's go. So we're gonna switch off the first phone. So we're gonna have LTE connectivity just in a couple of seconds. There we are. And as Azar was asking you to tweet, we're going to show you that this is not staged, this is live. And there it is. So, another one. This one, I want this one. There it is. So now we're seeing that we are tweeting. I hope so, guys. Because you. And by the way, we want to be showing as well that we are having heavy traffic. We can, come on guys, it's low.
But
It's
you can't
streaming
hear
already.
anything.
It's streaming already. So when I switch on the second phone that is connected to the corporate network, it will be connected to the corporate network attached to the LTE. There we are.
Changing or being
Yeah, this is changing. So you see that it's 0. And now when he calls you, that goes up to 2.
And now,
You see, now he's calling you. It's
where's my PV?
So it's coming.
So do we want to do it right now, or do we want to clean it
There
up
we are.
after I pick it
Either
up?
way.
I think maybe after I pick up the
Yeah.
phone. Yeah.
We see that we are registered to the PBX, and what about calling
Yeah.
header on stage right now?
So you see the first one is the registration.
Okay.
You see that?
Okay.
And now you'll get the call.
Okay. All right. Getting the call.
So what about sharing the music with everybody? Thank you. We're going to do the feed.
All right. I always love it when some friends call me with Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. And from now on, I'm going to consider this song to be about islands of Paca and the streams of mobile data. All right, so, Hanan, just to make sure I understand what happened, I know you set it up, but so basically, there were 2 phones on 2 network slices back in the Faraday cage. One of them was receiving streaming media. Then the other phone basically called me from the Faraday cage so I could hear the sound coming from that. We can't put people, I mean you can, but it's not all that pleasant to put people in the Faraday cage with the phone. So it came basically from that under the sea into that PBX, and then we just answered it, and we all got to listen to some music, correct?
Correct, you get it absolutely right. So one of the phones is streaming music from the internet directly, and the second phone is handling the voice call that you just received. And because of the 2 phones are on the same Faraday cage, the mic of one is speaking the speaker of the other one.
Right.
This is how we are hearing the music.
Yeah. Azar, while we were doing that, I saw that there were some graphs up there. Do you sort of want to explain what we were seeing up there on screen as this was happening on the 2 phones?
Absolutely, Heather. So while you were actually busy talking to Hanan, I actually saw that there was actually a SIP registration and a call that was made to your phone. So right here, I can actually, looking at the SIP routing, tell you that from 0, it went to just 1, that was a registration, and 2, that means there was a SIP call that actually happened to your phone. So I can monitor what was going on live, really. And then you can see the throughput also change in terms of overall throughput right here, that when you were streaming the music right up there. And then here I have some of the things like general routing and overall number of connections and so on. Now, the other thing that's interesting in this entire aspect is to actually show correlation functions. And with one of our partners that was part of this particular demo, we are actually able to show stats and information associated with successes and failures in terms of how many calls were successful, how many were failed, and then the latency variations with all of the KPIs and metrics that you see here. So overall, you know, a complete solution, pretty comprehensive, I would say, and the power of the community at work here.
Right, great. And proof that this was not smoke and mirrors. We were really streaming calls over an open source based network with a lot of looking ahead towards 5G components. So if we want to go back to the slides now. All right. So just really quickly, some of the lessons learned. So, I mean, the first one, this is no surprise, but open source collaboration works. We had more people from across 15 companies and more than 30 volunteers. and sort of just the increasing maturity of the software. You know, when we did this last time, we were really able to focus on onboarding, and it was still sort of, you know, basic functionality, but now we're really beginning able to show, you know, software-defined radios, disaggregated RAN, a lot of evolution in the core for next generation core components, and then it's still being able to do capabilities there. Interoperability amongst sort of commercial components and open source components, as well as with commercial handsets. Certainly there is a lot of stuff around the hardware, right, that still is kind of being custom designed. One of the things that we hope to do is really sort of tighten that up and make it a lot easier for service providers to deploy. And you know, we certainly learned a lot there around what's really required to start doing this. These are details that will be in the white paper, but you definitely still need high performance machines needed for the DU and virtual. What does BBU stand for again?
Distributed unit. DU is distributed unit,
No,
audio
yeah,
radio.
BBU?
CU?
No, BBU.
Baseband unit.
Okay,
Virtual
yeah, as a
baseband.
baseband, okay. Between the DU and the baseband unit, we did learn some things around the needing bare metal for radio and bare metal or containers for the DU. The current sort of virtualized CU does require a VM to run, and this is really amazing. Obviously, we're not done, right? So if you want to get a deeper dive into the technology and the demo, we encourage you to come to the LF Networking booth. We've got a lot of volunteers who can step you through this demo. We've got a VCO breakout that these two gentlemen will be presenting, and there are a number of Edge and CRAN conference sessions that I encourage you to attend. We've got a VCO demo mailing list, and then really as we start to bring this into, full deployability and maturity and operationalizing it, we encourage everyone to get involved in projects. We've got a CRAN project in OPNFV where we look to continue in evolving this, as well as a project on Edge, a project called Rocket, which is looking at sort of being able to deploy all of this on really high performance hardware, so things with GPUs and really edge sort of optimized hardware. And we're also, it's very important to us to get all of this operationalized into our CI/CD systems, our testing systems. We actually are now deploying a VEPC as part of our weekly funk test runs. So we really want to get this tightened up so that end users can really start deploying this and using it. And obviously the big thing ahead of all of us is really looking at how to, as Dan and Arpit were talking about in our opening, start migrating all of this to more cloud-native solutions. I know that that's something, that's a large set of work across multiple projects, but I really encourage all of you to get involved. And, of course, we have to thank our community volunteers. These are the folks who are involved in helping us with this project. Here are our ecosystem partners involved, so the different companies that either were involved in speccing this out, getting us requirements, providing software, hardware, or integration help. And then finally, this was a true collaboration across multiple open source communities using open source software from multiple upstreams. And that's what we're here for. This is what gets me up out of bed in the morning, and it's really exciting. So with that, I would like to, doing live demos on stage takes a lot of guts. And it's really scary, so I really want to thank the folks who came up here and did this. So Fuchao, Hanan, and Azar, thank you all so much. Let's give these folks a round of applause.